Ladies and gentlemen, it is that time of the week again. Hey, it's
Yes,
time.
it is.
It's time for the podcast known as DIRTBAGZ. Tonight we're doing something a little bit different. It's just DC and I, my co-host Danny Curran. How are you tonight?
Mate, a little different. We do this all the time.
Well, no,
Fire.
no, I don't think we've done this.
Jesse?
It's very early on, you and I,
Oh, listen.
as in a
love it.
podcast.
Yeah, I like it. Listen, the moral of the story is that we're going to have a great little catch up.
Yes.
Pretty excited about this one. We've got a few little things to talk about. Nothing too serious. Just a little bit of action happening in the greater dirt sports community.
Yes.
We want to. Well, again, we sort of talk about this a bit. We do want to be all inclusive because, Josh, let's kick it straight off actually, because and I'm going to throw you on the spot here. Tell us a little bit about your history forward driving, because I think probably a lot of people think that we're just mad off-road racers, which I don't know if we're mad, but you know what I mean? Like, as in, we're into the off-road racing scene, but our off-road racing background actually comes from all the standard stuff that most people do. You know, we got into the forward drives, we got into the performance, we got into, started racing these things, and all of a sudden you're going down a path where you ended up with a Gymco. But Josh, crank it off for me. What did you actually start with?
So my first four-wheel drive was, of all the good stuff, a 1980 Toyota Hilux.
Oh, they're the good ones.
Yes, round headlights.
Round
Yes,
headlights,
yep,
the original.
that my brother, being the good bloke that he is, sold to me.
You're talking about me.
Yeah, sold to me dirt cheap. But
which is funny, because just so we can actually clarify, that was actually my first four-wheel drive as well. So both of us actually owned the same four-wheel drive.
Yes, that is true. We both owned the same four-wheel drive, fresh off the bat. So we sorry mate, I'm just mucking around a little bit. Yeah, so we both owned the first four-wheel drive. She was an absolute rocket ship, that old girl. We bought that in the middle of the night out of Brisbane, and it came with a roadworthy, and it was $3,000, and it was sold by a little old lady whose little old husband used it to reverse the boat into the boat ramp every other Sunday, I think was the story. But it come with a roadworthy, so we thought it was pretty good. We you and I were both apprentices in the railway at the time, so we caught the train down for free, used some of those tickets that we used to get so we caught the train from Rockhampton down to Brisbane, which is an all-day train ride, and then we got a lift out to the suburb where it was, and I think we picked it up.
I can't remember, but it was out in the suburb.
And I think it was about 9 or 9:30 at night by the time we actually got to picking that thing up, and we just roadworthy, sweet, let's go, and we sorted all the way home. We were excited. I was going to say high as kites, but we weren't.
Did we drive straight home?
Yes.
Like, we just drove through the. I can't remember staying anywhere.
No.
That we just drove.
Yes, straight through the night. So we drove straight through the night, and then we get home at about 7:30 in the morning, and the old boy Johnny Curran, he's standing on the front veranda, and he just takes one look at it and he goes, "What have you idiots done?" I'm like, "No, it's good, bro. It's got like a roadworthy." So, and this thing turned out to be the biggest pile of trash ever. I think the first giveaway was you'd hook it into a corner, and the glove box would pop open.
Yeah.
So
she had about two of the six.
Yes, yeah, two
of
the 6 body mounts. The rest were literally just sat in place and bogged in position to make it look like they they were still in there. So yeah, so I started off with that. So she was a good old girl. She was an 18R, so carb fed 2-liter Toyota motor, had the 4-speed box, and as I think you sold it and you'd moved on to your TJ, but that's a story for another time. And I'd moved.
Well, actually, I reckon I had that 22R powered 91, 92 single cab in between that.
Yes.
I'm getting old now, Josh. I'm phone scratching the brain, but I was just thinking, I reckon there's probably a Hilux in the middle too. I had a single cab, like the early, the 91, 92 shape.
Yes, and that was actually
for a short period of time. And then I went to a TJ Wrangler. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. So that's a good point, because that's where this story goes. So the carb on the old 18R, she wasn't real fancy. She was well renowned for you'd be any sort of angle, any sort of decent off-roading, you'd end up running out of fuel, or you'd flood it, or you'd have all sorts of dramas, which for my first four-wheel drive wasn't that big an issue until I discovered the joys of lockers. So put a rear locker in it, and then anytime it lifted a wheel or did anything like that, it just would conk out. It was no good. So at the time, that's right, you had that 22R powered Hilux, and we had a mate, Tone North, come around, and he was driving his dad's car, and it had 2.4i on the side, or 2.4e on the side, which kind of piqued our interest, and we popped the bonnet, and there it was, 22RE, and it was a expected 2.4 litre Toyota motor. So is it the what was it, the Trading Post at the time that used to come out every Thursday or something like that? Yep. So we scoured the Trading Post.
All the Brisbane cars for
yes.
Us guys and CQ, they used to be listed down there. So
yes,
if you're looking for a Hottie Commodore, an old Valiant or something, or something a bit unique like a Corona with an EFI motor, that's where you had to go.
Yes, so we scoured the pages for
what
ages.
What did we do pre-internet?
I don't know, mate.
It was hard work to try to buy a car.
I think we struggled. But yeah, so we managed to track down a 22 RE powered Corona for $400. So we managed to purchase that. So JC and I drove down to Brisbane. We picked that bad boy up, and we brought it back home. And it was actually a shame. It was a really nice car, but we pulled that bad boy.
Tell it like it is, mate. You butchered it.
We butchered that because we had to cut the wiring harness out of it and stuff like that. But so the 22RE was actually a beautiful conversion for that car. So
it worked very well with the 4-speed.
Yes, but even the way it went in. So the block in the Corona, the engine mounts were further forward in the car in the Corona, and the engine mounts in the Hilux were further back. But believe it or not, the 22RE, the blocks actually was already drilled and tapped for the engine mounts, or was already cast with the engine mounts, and they just had like a bug in it. So we threaded that bug out, rebolted the factory Corona engine mount onto the 22RE in the middle of the block, and it bolted straight in. Yeah, so the only thing we had to do with that original Hilux was because it wasn't a cross flow head, so the inlet and the exhaust was on the same side, so it had very long inlet runners for the EFI. And in the first Hilux that it ended up in, we had to move the steering across a little bit, the bottom of the steering column, because it was just rubbing, and it was very, very close to that on the steering column. But we worked out later on, when we redid the conversion to a better condition Hilux, it's not something that we had to do that time. It was just that poor old original white Hilux was so busted and flogged that the body was so bent that the inlet runners hit on the steering in the engine bay. But yeah, so then it proceeded to go. We had front and rear lockers. The first little girl, she was front and rear lockers, 34-inch jungle trackers, Cymax jungle trackers. So I was a big fan of the mud at that age, obviously, by that. And the 22RE, and she was a little rocket ship, mate. It was a great four-wheel drive. It wasn't anything fancy. We just used to comment about the leafs and lockers. That was the way it used to get down. But good old leafs and lockers. That was the first old girl. And unfortunately, she had a few little gremlins that ended up biting us. Unfortunately, but that's okay. Rest in peace, old girl. But she was good. Yeah. Yep.
No, that's awesome. So I guess out of interest, like that, it just got me thinking there. It's interesting. I had a conversation with the old boy. So I mean, you guys know we have spent a lot of time with our old boy. He's a bit of the brains trust behind us, because I definitely don't think we'd do as much mechanical modification and rebuilding and gearboxes if we didn't have that sort of experience. He's just one of those old school dudes, engineer, not even like into mechanic, like never been a mechanic, never done any of those things. But old Johnny Boy Curran, he's sort of like, it's a Fortin. What could be the worst thing? Let's just pull it apart and see how it goes. And it tends to work out for us, which is pretty amazing. But it's interesting because what I was thinking there, Josh, when you're talking about the carb feather, so I'm going back a few steps here.
Yes.
But we were talking about it the other day, and he goes, these bloody, old fella, bloody new cars. So unreliable. And what I was thinking is, what's interesting about that, because I think the difference in thought process is, with an old Hilux or an old Cruiser or an old whatever, you know what it is. And really, let's be honest, they were rough, they were mongrels, they had no power steer. It was hard days forward driving.
Would I go to the Cape in my Hilux, or would I rather go in the Y62? I mean, I would much rather go in the Y62.
Gotcha.
But yes,
this is a great point, because this is actually, I love that statement. But the problem is with the new cars is now when they're on the side of the road stopped, they're almost like a Pandora's box, aren't they? They've got so much wire and so much. You know, particularly when I had it, like we'd rebuild the carb at Five Rocks in the sand to try to get it running again, because she failed it, but it'd always get you home. Whereas I suppose what's interesting about it, let's talk about, let's say, my Ranger or something like that. The problem with them is when they stop, they're so self-protective that they stop. They're dead in the water. It's an interesting problem with them, isn't it? Like the new cars and the new Touring and that. Not that I'm obviously, hey, we are right into the new cars. I love the fuel injected. I don't think I'd ever go back, but it's just an interesting conundrum or a change in thought with those things. Because again, old carb motor, as long as it's got some fuel pouring into it, and then, you know, like spark, really, what else is going to stop it?
Yeah, I get exactly what you're saying. So I guess what you're saying is he wasn't saying that new cars are unreliable.
Well, he did. He basically, it was to do with the Ranger. I got to be honest, and I hope Ford's stuff you. Ford, if you're listening, this is on you, because you guys treated me like crap, to be honest. So that's the way it goes. But like, you know, like we had those couple of issues with our 3.2, and I really like that motor as a whole.
Yes.
But as I sort of said, when it stops, it is dead in the water. You can't idle it back to Alice Springs. You can't idle it. They're really toasted, aren't they?
Yes. Yeah, I do know what you're saying. Yeah. Whereas, like you said, if you're on the side of the...
She might run like a hairy goat.
Yes.
But it'll get you home.
Yeah, and I guess probably throwing it out there, if you were going to spend, 3 or 4 weeks or maybe 3 or 4 months out in the desert, in the remote, back of Burke, back of Winton, back of Longreach or something like that, touring around, shooting roos or camping or whatever, you are probably right. Like you could take some relatively basic hand tools, some relatively basic fault finding, a multimeter, some spare fuses, some stuff like that, probably a little bit of wire, a couple of zip ties, and 9 times out of 10 you're going, or probably 99 times out of 100, you're going
Honestly,
to get the car fixed.
A bearing or like a rod is hanging out the side of the block, which is, let's be honest, normally self-inflicted, because you've either let it run out of oil, or you've been revving the ring out of the thing, and even for me, that's something that you don't really do in the middle of the desert. Hey, like you never turn an auto off in the desert. Sean Swaffield, if you're listening, never turn an auto off.
Coffee, or on the Plenty Highway either.
That's right.
Yes,
that's the desert, mate. But anyway, the long story short is, it's just interesting because, I think new cars are brilliant. They're so comfortable, and again, we just did, out to Fink and just did a squillion kilometers an hour with not a single issue.
Yes.
And you sit on 130 on the cruise control, where it's legal, of course, ladies and gentlemen. And, like you really can't do that in a 1980s Hilux, but it's just interesting. And I really think, I'll throw it out there, I reckon that every young fella should own an old car. And I know that's probably a bit of an old school statement, but man, we learned how to spin spanners doing that, didn't we? We learned how to, to jam in. Josh was talking about a few of those little issues before, it jammed in, the gearbox would jam up or whatever it is. And
if you're in high range, every now and then, or quite regularly in high range, it would pop the stick of the transfer case out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, even the 4-speed, I remember pulling the top hat off the 4-speed and putting the knuckle back in to get the selector going again.
Yes.
You'd pulled it through second too fast because everything was worn out. And, that was a set of skills that, really did us well over the years, because it sort of gets you prepared for some of this more remote touring and bits and pieces where you will spin spanners, you will have a red hot go at most things. So I think that's an interesting, the new world that we live in now is more so buy a, whatever the new brand dual cab is, whatever, tick a few boxes and then go. And I do like that. But I wonder now if we're losing a bit of that mechanical, 1, sympathy, and then 2, losing a little bit of that sort of stuff. But yeah, again, that's just a, bit of a conversation. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, if you're in the, make sure you like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, all that sort of stuff that we do on YouTube, and make sure you keep up to date. And also let us know in the comments, what is your first 4-wheel drive? What was the great memory that you had about it? Because I think it's something special, the first 4-wheel drive, isn't it? It's something that I definitely have great memories learning how to four-wheel drive, and we were always lucky. We had old Johnny Boy Curran and the CQ crew, thick as thieves. We were doing bits and pieces and wheeling around.
Yeah, but like that's probably also the age that we're at, DC. Like we're probably letting it out of the bag a little bit there when we're talking about how old we are. But like back in the day, like that Hilux was.
I'm not letting anything in the bag. I look old. So
although Mickey T was just saying how much he just did drop a comment and say how much he likes the Mo that you're rocking at the moment, bro. So well done. But do you think that just comes with age though? Like that's what's available now these days. Like that Hilux when you first purchased it, what was that? Are you going to say 2001?
Yeah, sure.
So that's a 21-year-old car.
Yeah.
So now that we're in 2022, a 21-year-old car is a 2001. So that's a GU. So even the most basic GU that you can buy is either it's a diesel, and or even if you buy a cheap petty, because the diesels are still very expensive. You buy a cheap petty, it's a fuel injected 4.5, computer controlled. The auto's computer controlled. Like now those 20-year
what we all should do is get our 4.8 patrols, pull it all apart, and put a Holly carb on it.
Yes,
I'm sure a manifold of something will fit.
Well, probably, maybe not a four.
Get Richie from Radius Fab to start this idea.
Well, maybe
at a distributor.
Well, maybe not a 4.8, but a 4.5. Probably the old carby fed 4.2.
Listen, I'm just joking, ladies and gentlemen. Before you
I was getting ready. To go down a rabbit hole here.
No,
yes,
I wouldn't build a carby. But all I guess I'm saying though is that there's a lot of good options. I think there's probably still a lot of early leaf sprung Hiluxes and bits and pieces like mid 90s that are sitting in sheds that people aren't using. They're on farms. Like we used to scour again, getting back to it. Like you didn't go to whatever. You'd go out to Winton or you'd look for old cars sitting in sheds and that. And I'm sure that they're still around if you want to look at. I think. Let's just go.
Is the problem though now?
No, I'll tell you what the problem is. Here you go, ladies and gentlemen. I'm getting fired up now. The problem is nowadays that there's too much consumable cash around and loans, and that young fellas don't want old cars.
We're not going to start talking about the RBA, mate.
Yep. I'm talking
inflation. It's the recession we had to have. Just ask Danny Curran.
Oh, listen. Who have we voted with? No, listen. But all I'm saying is that in real facts is that in our day, Josh, no young fella from Hastings Deerings had $100,000 youth. Whereas now that is a very common place to have $100,000 wrapped up in a youth and you're an apprentice.
Well, you're right.
Yeah, I think that's a shift. Okay, I am going down the rabbit hole. Here we go, Josh.
Send it.
Is that, I'm shooting bullets here, is that the new
is it normal? Tony Abbott?
It's not Tony Abbott.
Who's going to pay for my home loan?
Who's going to pay for my home loan? No, listen, where I was going to go with that was actually, that's interesting because it leads me to another point that I wanted to talk to tonight. The Jacks are getting on me. I'm ready.
500 mil can.
Yeah. But what I'm saying to you is that a new, with the social media that we've got going on now, there wasn't that pressure. I've got to be honest. There wasn't really like a feed of people that had $100,000 cars that we were keeping up with. You know what I mean? Like, honestly, it wasn't about that. It was you lived well within your means. I'm really starting to sound old now. Ladies and gentlemen, we're doing it. But, this new social media influencer lifestyle that we've got where, everyone's got a Y62, like myself.
Yep.
But, but a lot of everyone's got a 200 series and they've got the 79 for touring and they've got the Caravan and they've got the... Is that something now that is changed with where we are at as a society in Australia and with this overlanding and forward driving? Like when we went camping first up, Josh, and again, this wasn't because we're showing our age. Angled fridges were around; they existed. You know what I mean? Like camper trailers existed. That it's not like they didn't exist, but we didn't need them. We would use an esky because we were poor. That's what we were. But we weren't any poorer than any other apprentices. We just didn't think like, oh well, the best.
Like the cash rate wasn't as low as what it was. Do you know what I mean? Like it's only in the last what, 5 or
Yeah,
6
but I
years?
don't know if that really affects the young fellas in the sense that
Well, why not? A personal loan, like as the cash rate drops for home loans, the cash rate drops for personal loans as well.
so would you've got a personal loan if it was at 6% or 12% or 15% when you were 18?
Don't know.
No, the answer
The option,
no.
well, I don't know because it wasn't available to me when I was that age. A personal loan was 16 or 17%, and I couldn't justify that. If it was 6%, I don't know.
Ooh,
I don't,
interesting.
well,
See,
I don't know.
whereas I don't think that I ever thought about that as an option. I never went down the path of I'm going to put a set of
And then waiting 6 months, these set of tires will then go from costing me $5,000 to $7,500.
mm, I've got to be honest about my personal situation is I don't buy a TV on tick because if I can't afford a TV, I can't afford a TV. I've got to wait until I can afford it. That's the way I live my life. I'm not saying there is plenty of people that use finance in a very safe and controlled. Not financial advice here, ladies and gentlemen, but what I'm saying to you is there's plenty of people that use it to great advantage. They get the points, they get the flights, they get all the other stuff that goes with it. Tick, tick, tick.
Yes.
Great. It's not an issue in any way, shape, or form.
Yep.
So I guess, it's just interesting to see this change. But I just was interested in the thought of, I guess this week I've been watching a bit of, 24/7, and I've been watching a bit of, all the other ones that are on, and it's just interesting because I love it. But just to clarify, I enjoy watching those guys. I enjoy watching the 24/7 guys. They're great fun to watch. But have they created this consumerism four-wheel drive where you think that you can't go off-road without the kitchen setup? You can't go off-road without the rooftop tent.
Yep.
You can't go off-road without the max tracks and without the bits and pieces. Because I must admit, again, can't say this enough, in the 2000s, that was not a thing. No one had plastic boards that went under your tires so you could climb a hill. That didn't make any, that, you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
Yeah, I hope I'm not getting myself sued here or anything, but it's just interesting that social media branding and how often do you hear it now? We have a bunch of close mates that just bought a four-wheel drive and they're like, oh yeah, we want to go to Fiveys. Can I go? Absolutely. Stock four-wheel drive all day, every day. We take all our stuff. We basically buy them and take them straight to Fiveys.
Yeah.
That's the cartel way.
Yeah, that's right. That's
But it's
the breaking
interesting
in.
because they were like, oh, well, we're going to wait because we've got to go to ARB and we've got to go. And all of that is great stuff. I mean, we love our modifications.
Yes.
But it's interesting now that we've got this generation that think that you can't do anything unless you're all kitted up and stocked up.
Yes. Yeah, I do know what you're saying. And I think you're right. Like, it's so hard to talk about what it would have been like for us as young fellas because we just, like you said, grew up in a completely different era. I mean, heck, we didn't have mobile phones as young fellas growing up.
Holy moly, you're bringing up the old stuff.
Yes.
Now.
Yeah, that's right. So it wasn't something that we experienced. But I think you're right. Like, you talk about, or you see these kitted out four-wheel drives. So, look, I think it's probably a combination of two things. Like you said, there's the influence of social media, as well as where our cash rate's at the moment. It is going to be interesting to see what happens in the next 12 months with where vehicles will end up. There might be a few change of plans, four-wheel drives for sale.
Oh, damn, you said it, right?
But
I see them on Marketplace already.
What are you scared on Marketplace for?
Mate, you always got a
Minivan?
I don't need a minivan, weirdo. Maybe a Deleca, though. I'll take a Deleca if I can find one.
It's not a bad obsession to have, but yeah. So it's it's going to be interesting to see what the future holds and stuff like that. But I do definitely think, look, things are a lot cheaper as well. Like, hey, what can you remember off the top of your head? This will test you. What did you pay for your rooftop tent when we went to the Cape?
Yeah, no, that does test me. I don't think I think they were like $1,800.
Yeah,
like
like what could you buy a King's rooftop for now?
Yeah,
like cheap.
Yeah,
and that's probably the other thing. There's a lot of people that have gotten into the marketplace, like Kings, like brands like that are mass producing and selling things relatively cheap. So it is more affordable to be able to afford all these things. Like back in the day when we first got, what were your three brands of fridges? Engel, Waco, and Trailblazer. So there wasn't that, like ARB now have a fridge, Evercool have fridges like that are mass produced. XTM, what's the one in the Ranger? XTM.
Yeah,
Like that was a dual zone 80-liter fridge that we brought for $750. We literally bought it because it was so cheap on sale at BCF that we went, well, it's worth having a second fridge for the work car. So, like, whereas back in the day, like, you would have paid double that for a 40-liter Waco.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
No, I do understand that side of things. I just, again, it's probably the thought process that you can't go off road without it.
Yes.
What I'm disappointed. That's a bad word, but
righto, Dad.
Yeah. I'm sounding pretty old here, but I guess what I'm saying is that if you've got a Esky and a swag and a cheap swag, you're good to go. Don't get held back by waiting. Go on the adventure now.
Yes.
You can do all the trips. I mean, we literally just swagged it and fridged it, and like very, very low buck. Lots of our touring back in the day, didn't we, Josh? And
even recently.
Yep. So no.
Although not you flaming fairy now. You towed the van. I got to sleep in the dirt for 2 nights. Oh, I better tow my van across.
Oh, here we go. This is what I put up with all day, ladies and gentlemen.
Not me and JC, mate. We were in the dirt, slumming it.
Yeah. Real old school boys, you two. No, it was good. Listen, and that probably showed you, actually, that trip itself showed the two differences and how easy and the fact that you can just go on an adventure and have a great time.
Yeah.
Now, while we're under the pump of influences, because I've got another couple of things I wanted to bring up. Now, I'm interested again. Please comment, because I'm very interested in what everyone's thoughts were. I'm trying to. There's a new culture, and I think with influencers, and I'm gonna. I hope I'm not lifting the veil. I just want some clarification or some information, because there's a lot of guys now that have been around for quite a while, and I won't use any names until I need to use any names, but they've been around for quite a while. And what's the thought process on a lot of this stuff being staged now for the shows? Like, surely if you've done lots and lots of years of four-wheel driving, some of the stuff that they turn into massive challenges can't be massive challenges. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
There's plenty of stuff out there. So therefore that's for the camera. And how does that affect the next group of four-wheel drivers coming through? Because listen, lots of the influencers, I give them big credit. There's a big shout out. They've done very well, and they do a lot with respect to showing you how to do, say, winching correctly.
Yes.
And that is to be commended. But then they show some other stuff where they're like, like say their wheels up and smoking wheels and carrying on, and, on banks that really are very, very drivable.
Yes.
The other one that I'm always interested in, there's a number of teams, if you're listening and you know who I'm talking about, again, like, double lock cars, and they don't run any lockers when they start, and then they get bogged, and then they start mucking around. Like, that's an interesting conundrum that, like, why are they showing the hard way to do things? Is that because that makes interesting content?
Yeah, got to be. So what you're saying there is, how come they don't, like, at the base of the hill, bang both lockers in?
Because
and once you've got momentum, 100% in the Hilux, is this where you're going to ask? Like, when the front rears in the Hilux, was it better to turn them on and while you were crawling with momentum, keep crawling, or drive with your rear locker, or drive with no locker, get stuck, put your rear locker in, continue, get to your front locker? No. Bang them both in at the bottom. Stop. Yeah, 100%.
It's very hard to get moving.
Yes, so
it's an interesting concept, because I see it time and time again. And then the other one, Sam Miles, we'll have you on one day, because I actually like your shows and enjoy it. But, like, I've got to call you out on that when you're towing the van across Nagala Rocks, and you're on 16 PSI, whatever. You said, in the comments, we'll see it. If you went from 16 to 4, you would drive from where you are and drive out. I'll back myself on that. I've seen it a million times before. I've done it before.
Yeah.
I've towed Jayco's up Big Sandy, and with and again 4 PSI. Now again, I've got to tick the lawyer box here. I'm not telling anyone to run 4 PSI, but if you're experienced and you know what you're doing, why are we thrashing cars and having multiple lineups? Like, again, Barney, man, I'd have a beer with that guy anytime. He seems like a great guy, that Legend X Cruiser guy, but the mince that they did on Big Sandy towing that camper up, and the effort and the revs and the multiple cars strapped together, that's not a real thing, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to call it. If you want to send me a message, if you want to know how to get up that hill, we'll tow a full-size trailer up there with no worries whatsoever, with a Y62 with no lockers. It's not an issue. It's overhyped. It's overinflated. And if you get to a point where you're struggling to drive, why aren't we letting our tires down and just idling up?
Well, I think probably you've probably hit the nail on the head too, particularly if you've got all the gear. So, like, we're not saying Dan and I are massive fans of extremely low tire pressures.
In almost any condition. So even down to people in mud, like if you're not letting your tires down, if you've got the clearance, if you're letting your tires down and all of a sudden you're bellied out, you're in trouble.
Yes.
But if you've got clearance in mud, flat tires will help you.
Wow, he's looking into the camera too. He's not looking at. He's not looking at me.
No, stuff you, mate. You're right. But I'm serious. And then the other side. Oh, I'm gonna get burned here. The other side is that, like, even without bead locks, like everyone's super worried about bead locks. I actually am now thinking, I don't think I ran bead locks other than on one car that was a Nissan Patrol that I had that had bead locks and 37s on it. But other than that car, I've never run bead locks. Yeah, I've taken a few tires off rims doing silly young fella things. But if you want to talk about just driving up a sand dune on 4 PSI, because I'm now doing 15 Ks, towing gently, not shaking up my, fridge and not breaking a glass in the camper van, because I'm doing that now, I'm never taking a tire off the rim. I've never had any issues like that. So I'm very interested in the concept. And yeah, again, I'm just interested in what people's thoughts are on this, whether we're now making things hard for the camera because that makes good content. And I'll put my hand up. I'm cool. I enjoy watching those shows. And if that's the reason, I'm good with it. But are we breeding a group of four-wheel drivers now that believe that if you do not have forage lift, 37s, double locks, fridge, awning, camper trailer, tent, blah, 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 then all of a sudden we end up going down this rabbit hole where people don't want to go camping because they see this. They're that scared. Like, I mean, how many times do you see on, say, Facebook or something like that? They're all super worried about going up Big Sandy at 5 Rocks. And honestly, like, in the worst conditions ever, we've towed trailers up in the middle of summer. So again, I hope I'm not, I don't know, pulling the veil or something like that. And I know not many people really will probably, that will affect this message, because most of our guys are hardcore four-wheel drivers that are interested in it anyway. But I just think it's interesting, and I'm interested in the general consensus or the thought process of whether it's just great TV, and I'm cool with that. If we're just making great TV, cool. But some of the stuff that I see, some of the people that are Insta famous, man, they make things look hard.
Yeah, and I think probably one of the things, DC, is, what happens if you start doing damage to a car? Like, so we've had this discussion, and we'll talk about Big Sandy because that's just our local sort of hard four-wheel drive hill. You sometimes you'll pull up and you'll see people in their, they're riding the clutch and they're burning their clutch out and the car's getting hot, and they're having all these dramas. And you say to them, "Hey man, like, what are your tire pressures on?" "Oh, I'm on 16. Like, well, just go a little bit lower. Like, hey, you don't even have to go to 4. Like, maybe try 10.
Yeah.
Like, let's see where this goes." And no, I don't want to roll a tire off the rim, or I don't want to damage a bead. That'll cost me like $400. And you're like, mate, you're cooking your motor, you're cooking your clutch, like
gearbox is broken.
Particularly in auto, it getting very hot. Yeah, because even the thing, like we say, like, let your tires right down, get out of the situation that you're in. Like, maybe go 100 meters up the track, and then pump them up.
I should clarify that you're exactly right. I probably didn't say that, and I meant to say that. I literally only drive from the base of Big Sandy.
Yes.
Let my tires right down, idle up Big Sandy, tow on my trailer, which everyone sort of says can't be done, but I'm telling you it can be done. Idle all the way to the top, pump my tires up.
Yes.
Drive in. There's no issue. And I think that, that's just smart, and it takes me 20 minutes to do, or 10 minutes to do that, with new stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, I think it's very interesting that it's become this thing that, they'd rather muck around for hours with max tracks and digging, and you see them on beaches and they're winching sideways, and all they had to do was let their tires down. Drive 100 meters and then pump them back up.
But it does make good television.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. But and it creates a bit of action and a bit of adventure and a bit of excitement and stuff like that. And I guess maybe for the people out there, but I was about to say maybe for the people out there that don't have air compressors and stuff like that. But if you can afford winches and max tracks and everything like that, you can afford onboard air.
It should be your first.
Yeah.
So stuff the max tracks, stuff the tent, stuff the you can swag it with an air compressor
and a good snatch strap. And
that's another thing. Good, Josh. I'm glad you brought that up, ladies and gentlemen. If you're going 4-wheel driving and don't have your own snatch and strap and a couple of shackles, then you're off your head. Because that's one of the big things. We see it all the time, don't we, Josh? Most people are very happy to help out.
Yes.
But when all of a sudden it's like, oh, I don't have any gear, you're like, oh, hold on, mate. What are we doing here? Like if you don't even have the first part of it, unless you're a complete novice.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's interesting, Josh, because I'll tell you a little story. We are really on to tire pressures here tonight. But I pulled up, said, let your tires down. He's like, oh, no. Old mate snatch and strapped him, was hardly moving. Like, you see it all the time on Inskip, bogged it Inskip.
Yeah, bogged it Inskip,
old mate's fine. If you haven't got any momentum, if the car towing is basically bogged, you guys are stuck. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Anyway, they mucked around probably for 10, 15. JC Senior turned up at this time too. We're all just like, there's cars parked everywhere on that entrance. And they got out at the end, and he basically threw his hands in the air and said, see? Like the fact that he was proud that they got that thing out, they should have been ashamed of themselves, mate. If he's listening today, you come and see me, lad. I'll teach you a thing or two, because my goodness, or Phil Benson will anyway, because he'd be disappointed in that action. And I'm just surprised by that attitude that nowadays, like he was dead set proud of the fact that he got out without letting his tires down. And when did that become a thing? Old JC Senior, he would have knocked me out. No, he wouldn't have really.
He should have a few more times, maybe.
He probably should have. But listen, all I guess I'm saying to you is it's a very interesting concept when you can see without a shadow of a doubt what difference that makes, and then you still choose not to. Well, what do I want to say? Do the right thing. Follow the.
Yeah. Like imagine. I guess what you're saying is you're right. So you're somewhere, and you're stuck, and someone gets stuck right behind you or has to pull up because you're stuck, and you get out of the way, and then they take off exactly from where you're stuck and just cruise on up the hill. And then they sort of, you get to the top and you say, what was the difference? And they go, oh, I'm on 10 PSI. And you go, oh, I'm on 18. Like, pardon me, that's really the only difference. Like, surely you'd start to think to yourself, maybe I should let me tires down a little bit more. Yeah. But in saying that, DC, we are just fiends for low tire pressure.
Ladies and gentlemen, proper fiends. Josh Curran used to pull his valves out when he had D-locks on a Hilux on 37, because that's the way it worked best. So,
it was the way it worked, but it's not a joke.
No air. They would not come out. So,
I'm going to claim another thing. I reckon ARB come up with their valve remover idea because of I just used to pull the valve out. Yeah. Russ Mason saw it.
Yeah, way faster. No, listen. So anyway, don't follow us. I'm not suggesting that you follow us, but it's just an interesting one that I'm a bit worked up on the influencer thing at the moment. Like, I don't know. Maybe people might think we're doing it with this podcast and bits and pieces, but we have no claim to fame or anything like that. But I guess I'm just saying, I see a lot of sneaky moves from the influencer, and I get it. Ladies and gentlemen, I get it. They're trying to sell some product. They're trying to make a living.
They got sponsors.
They got sponsors. I get it. But there should also be a parity where the average Joe that's watching this, because there is a lot of people getting into forward driving now because of the social media, because of YouTube, because of
COVID. Couldn't travel overseas.
Yeah, all the people decided, and all those things have influenced great people. And it's a huge, I love it, because I think there's nothing better. Again, see, this is we're getting a bit passionate about this. Like, people will probably typecast us as off-road racers, but we're actually not. More and more, I would travel before I'd go off-road racing. I love off-road racing. I'm very passionate about it. But the flip side is I also love going to Cape. I love going to think. I love going to and we do it as a trip where we go through the desert, don't we? So
Yeah,
it's something where I think that just the beauty and nature that we have around Australia, we're so lucky.
yeah.
Every trip that we've ever done through, Western
Well,
Australia.
2016, the Jimco was prepped, ready to race, and we didn't race Fink. Instead, we rode motorbikes out across the Simpson Desert because it was something Dad wanted to always do. So we decided not to race.
We have a good one coming up soon. I don't know if Josh knows about this because he's got to find a car. Our new thing.
What's your white Jeep doing?
Yeah, bro, she's back.
Yeah,
Tell me, and we'll get it going.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
The moral of the story is we're doing a no roof trip to the Cape is our new thing, and we're going to attempt to do the eastern beaches. So it's going to be a good run through there, and we'll do all the but basically from at least from the Daintree up, no roofs are allowed. So she's going to be dirty. It's going to be basically like a Can-Am trip, but in old junker Jeeps. So and anything else that wants to come with
Suzuki's,
early Land Cruisers, anything like Land Rovers.
Yep.
Oh, we could do
your Y62 when we cut the roof off.
I'll cut it off if that's my only option at the end.
Wow.
It's your Y62 too. Anyway, long story short is that there's some good fun things. We love our off-road.
Yeah.
I know that it's all about the entertainment and the fun.
Yep.
We get it. But it's just interesting because I really do hope that one thing that can come out of the whole social media thing is that people can learn together and that people can realize that, man, you don't need even you think about how we roll loose. That's everyone that knows us knows we roll loose. Like the Simpson Desert, like we were in a Ranger, style side Ranger with 20s on it. I went to the Cape on 20-inch rims. It was the dumbest thing I'd done, but it was the rims that I had. You know what I mean? So you don't always have to be perfectly prepared, and sometimes that's part of the adventure. And obviously you want to make sure that you've got your things lined up that are super important, like your maintenance and your oils and all that side of thing. But flip side of that is that you can do a lot with very little if you want to. So again, I just encourage you. I don't know if I'm making much sense here or whether the Jack's talking a little bit too much, but I definitely encourage you guys to get out, get amongst it, and enjoy your forward driving and try some different things. Don't Ruthie told me, and I love Ruthie too. You're a big Ruthie fan, but Ruthie said never go below 16. Don't worry about that, mate. Have a bit of a crack. Do some things different. Try some different things.
Well, the Team Taylor boys just commented and said maybe a Manx buggy.
Oh, mate. Hey.
To the Cape.
They're all in.
Yeah.
Go. How would it rock crawl over those rocks, you reckon? Hey, listen.
Snatch strap.
Some of the stuff that you see them doing Baja and that, like the Volkswagens, they go everywhere. So, that would be pretty fun for sure. But, it's interesting. We'll talk about Taylors. This leads, it's a nice little segue. Four-wheel drive show in Sydney's going on right now. So There's some cool photos. Because actually this leads to two segues.
Yes.
Do you know what's back, Josh? And it's pretty darn cool.
I don't.
Outer Limits 4x4.
No way.
Deadly serious. They have cranked up again. I see that on Instagram. So at Outer Limits 4x4. Nothing to do with us, just so we're clear. I don't know who's involved with it. But we
can't claim credit for this, unlike Bojangles.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, we're definitely Bojangles. But true story is Outer Limits 4x4 are back. Now, for all you young lads and ladettes, that was the forum of hardcore rock crawling, off-road racing, everything back. Well, off-road racing, but it was like pre-Ultra 4, tough truck, all that. It was mad smack talk, man. So people like Giggles used to just run a ride on that joint. But Matty Shields. There was tons of good guys. Sandy Bowman was involved.
Yes.
There's lots of guys back in the full driving days. There was heavy winch challenge conversation. There was heavy. So Outer Limits 4x4. If we get the forum life cranking again, might have to get back on and log on.
What if my login it still works?
They reckon it works. So if you're an Outer Limits guy, Brooke Marrington was on there and all that sort of stuff. Like all those tough truck guys. So. Anyway.
And there was a lot of good info on there as well. Like a lot of good tech forums and stuff.
Absolutely.
Forums.
Yeah.
Forums. Yeah, a lot of tech forums that had some really good information about, suspension geometry, things like that. Yeah. So it's
because it was like Pirate. So if you have any idea what Pirate 4x4 was, it was like the Australian version of Pirate, which was pretty cool. So, again, probably had some desert racing, but it wasn't too desert racing heavy, but
No.
Yeah, Outer Limits was definitely pretty cool back in the day, and they have fired back up, and that was because I saw photos that they'd shared. I don't, how the algorithm works and all that sort of stuff, but it had ended up they shared a picture of a really cool GU wagon that's at the Sydney Four-Wheel Drive show. So there's some really cool, truly modified stuff, not just only 9 Series cruisers. There is some pretty darn cool cars, unlike 79. Anyway, yeah, so the moral of the story is, yeah, check that out. Outer Limits 4x4.
So, Dan, when did 79s come out? No.
Oh, don't you start, man. Don't you start. If you didn't realise, ladies and gentlemen, that 79s originally had round headlights and thin cab, I can't help you. That's the end of statement. Do you like that?
I do like that. But, yeah, good to see that the Sydney Four-Wheel Drive show cranking along. And, yeah, there's hopefully some very cool rigs, and looking forward to the photos that will come out over the weekend. We might share a few on our page as well with one of our sponsors, the Race Wheels Australia boys, being down there as well. So there you go. We were just talking about influencers on social media, as we just give one of our sponsors a absolute shameless plug.
Are you just trying to sell methods, mate? Is that what you're doing?
Well, tire pressures down low. Method have B grip technology.
Had affected someone's thought process where they thought they couldn't do something when they should have done it.
Yes.
I don't know if that all makes sense, but that's where I was going with the conversation.
Yeah, you'd hate someone to be like, I'm not going to start camping or touring now because I can't afford all the good gear.
If I don't have methods and 35-inch Toyos on my GU, I can't go to King Kuna. Yes, you can.
Yep.
Yes, you can.
Yep.
Come on. It's a good goal to save up and get them.
Yes.
Your car will look mean on methods and with a set of Toyos.
Mean as, bro.
Australia.
Yes.
You like that? See, I snuck it in there?
Yes.
But the moral of the story is that, lots of adventure can be had in the four-wheel drive scene just by having a red-hot crack. And I love red-hot cracks. But, yeah, no, it's interesting. So, Outer Limits, because it's definitely something to get onto. And if you're not involved with it and you're a bit younger and you don't know what the Outer Limits thing was, oh, man, they were good days. There was, like you said, plenty of shock tuning information on there. Lots of the stuff that we learned. To do with the Jimco and that, and it was to do with working with Pirate and Outer Limits and bits and pieces. And then obviously we had a lot of good help within Australia too, with Mike's Shock Shop and also with King's America, like when we had a bit of chat with, and I mean, you can't go past Henry too. Some of the information that he gave us with our Jimco,
yes,
really did change the way we thought about it. So,
yes,
I mean, that's some pretty cool stuff that's going on for sure. So, but yeah, it's cool that you can get this information in a free to air sort of arrangement where someone's not getting paid to tell you. It's actually real information.
Yeah, and there's opposing viewpoints as
Absolutely.
well. Yep. About different ideas, and then you can head off into the rest of the interweb and do the research for yourself and see where you end up.
Yeah, because particularly with anything forward driving, anything overland, anything, any of that sort of stuff, man, there's many, many ways to skin a cat, isn't there?
Sorry, are you calling it overlanding now rather than touring?
Touring? What do you want to call it? I'm just merely saying that whatever you want to do, whether even rock crawling.
Yes.
You want to go to Tough Truck, like no two cars are really the same, are they?
No.
Yeah, so actually a bit of a shame.
Tough Truck cancelled.
Tough Truck got cancelled this year.
So is that COVID related?
No, it was to do with, I believe it was to do with rain and water.
Copy.
Yeah, so the Milberdale area, they had huge predicted rains, and essentially they didn't think that they were going to be able to do the prep that they needed to in that weather. So that's what I read into it. So
yes.
And it's hard because obviously, we've run some very small events and been involved with behind the scenes events. There was obviously a lot of people that were disappointed, rightfully so. I get it. But to throw it at the organisers is a bit crazy because
you can't control the weather.
When there's only a month to go or something and you've got torrential rain.
Yeah, predicted for like the weekend will probably be fine.
Yes,
but that doesn't mean that the rain leading up for the last.
Yeah,
you think about some of those. Gunda Windy got cancelled a couple of times, and it was the rain leading up to it. The day of the race, it wasn't actually raining, but
Yeah.
in the week leading up to it, there was so much rain that, what do?
You can't do much about it, that's for sure. Yeah, Gundy had a rough run. A tough truck is in the middle of a rough run at the moment.
Yeah.
It's been pretty hard.
I'm just once again guessing. It's been a couple of years, hasn't it? Like,
Yeah.
I don't think Tough Truck's run since 2019.
Yeah, pre-COVID, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
Yeah, but it's been tough. So there's been a few because they've definitely that tough events and promotions. They run a good ship. Like, I mean,
Yep.
it's a good event. Pete puts on good stuff down there, but I know that he likes to do it right.
Yeah.
So that's probably a key to it. So
yeah,
that's interesting.
And that's the hard part. If they half-ass it just to get it on, well, then people will be blowing up about the tracks aren't prepped properly and this and that. It's hard to keep a lot of people happy.
Yeah, the old damned if you do, damned if you don't sort of thing.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. But listen, there's still plenty of racing going on around the place too. Like Ben English, we got to get him on the pod, Josh.
Yes.
Yeah, Ben. So if you're listening, mate, hook us up, brother. We're keen to come and catch up with you. We'll get on your slide into the DMs or something like that because we want to catch up and talk Oz 4 or Ultra 4 because they are affiliated now with the American brand, which is pretty darn cool.
Yes,
there was a little bit of competition in the early days, but I think that's all working. Yeah, who would have thought competition in off-roading? But yeah, no, it's pretty darn cool what they're doing now, and it's cool that they've got lots of
good properties.
Yeah, really good.
I believe they had to scramble a bit with Land Cruiser Mountain Park getting sold.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think a lot of people were a little bit snuck up on. I mean, we all knew that it was a possibility. It just Land Cruiser Mountain Park's been such a mainstay for so long, hasn't it?
Such a staple, bro.
Staple of the off-road. And see, probably for all you guys over in WA and whatnot, you're like, yeah, there's Land Cruiser Mountain Park. What's that about? But in Queensland, for four-wheel drivers, that was like, there was a lot of good parks, and there is a lot of good parks around, but that was the one.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I guess it's probably kind of like, for anyone listening, like Loveday 4x4 Adventure Park. Like, it's probably in South Australia. Like, the Land Cruiser Mountain Park was like the Queen. Nah, not yet, bro. Yeah, sorry, a bit slow, mate. I take this stuff seriously.
Yeah, me too.
That's the kind of guy I am. But they are doing some awesome stuff there for sure.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right.
And cool cars, and great to see some of the Ultra 4 cars cross over.
Yeah,
in the Class 8 racing as well. Like, I think it's pretty cool that they are eligible to do that.
Yeah, no, I think it's a cool thing that's definitely going on now, and it'll be interesting, Josh, to see with this. Next year we're going to the 7-litre rule in the off-road racing scene. That will be interesting to see who comes out of the woodworks to race. A lot of those 6.2 powered cars, and the 7-litre LS motored powered things. Anything that's not supercharged, turbocharged. There would be a lot of cars in that 400 cubic inch range that are available.
Yes.
I saw one the other day. Actually, there was a really cool Jimmy's built four-wheel drive for sale on Facey. I think it was on Facey.
Yep.
Yeah, no, it wasn't a bad price either, Josh. Had decent motor, decent stuff. It was like 60. Like, that's not a bad. Yeah, not a bad way to get racing, eh?
Yeah, that's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh man, and it'd go quick. You know what I mean? Like, those Jimmys are no joke. Solid axle front rear. Not like the prep would kill you. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
Prep is expensive. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've ever owned a off-road race car, you'll know prep is a killer. But the flip side is it had all the right parts to start off with. We had this chat with Billy last week about, the right car built for the right parts to start with, the right parts to start off with.
Yes. Yep.
And how that makes a big difference.
Yep. Yeah, and I think. No, go.
No. I was swinging back around to the Sydney 4-wheel drive show. And it'd be interesting to see some more photos over the weekend. We'll try to, like you said, share them in bits and pieces about what's going on in Sydney. Like what are cars, what new stuff they've got down there. Because hopefully there's a host of 4-wheel drives and bits and pieces down there. Because there's plenty of cool stuff. I'll tell you what is cool. Have you seen Patriot Games' new Jeep they've just built on 40s and everything? And it's meant to be road registered, so that's going to be interesting. They did it all pre-rego, so
on 40s.
On 40s, it's got Dynatracks under it, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there with that. Whether that
are they based out of Queensland?
They are, yeah. They're out of Goldie. That's where they're.
Interesting.
Yeah. So listen, I think the last video.
I wonder if you'll get slapped with a few tickets.
You're killing me.
Yeah,
it's like a good slap, apparently.
Yeah, so anyhow, continue on with your story. Yeah, 40s, Dynatracks.
Yeah. So they've done there's a few weird bits.
Motor modification or
No.
running the V6?
Running the V6. Yeah, and they had I did see that they've got, like a few computer integrators and bits and pieces. I'm sure there's people that are smarter than me out there that have watched and been interested in that sort of. No sense to me, because I thought that unless you use, but it must be a new rule, like with the Queensland with.
So bolt-on style for the suspension?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I didn't think you were allowed to do that with Heims and bits and pieces, but maybe nowadays the rules have changed a little bit. Back when I was like mad keen on modifying, like you had to use still, like say if you wanted to go long arms, you had to use like long trailing arms out of like say a cruiser or something using factory bushes. And, you had to do a lot of like the engineering wise, they wanted factory parts, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And because I know Fats Fabrication was quite into doing a few things like that. I can't imagine it was cheap. And that's not a shot at Fats. I'm saying to do that level of engineering is not cheap. But it'd be interesting to know where that fits into that. All I can tell you, Josh, is the last episode that they dropped on YouTube. I'm very confident it was on a trailer, and I don't believe it was registered at that point. So whether that's an issue or not, I don't know. But I guess we'll find out at some point.
They may have got to the Department of Transport and they're just like, mate.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, bro.
Are you pulling the piss?
Actually, I'll tell you what, talk about pulling the piss. I'm pretty sure it had like core flute or Bunnings guarding edging like flares on it too, because it's pretty wide, man. It's got like
with those Dynatracks in it.
Yeah. Well, you've got to go wide to make it so that you clear the 40s, haven't you? So, it's going to rub on chassis rails with, the standard width axles and bits and pieces in it. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that
is it a Rubicon?
It's a Rubicon Gladiator, yeah.
So what do they come out with factory tyre size? 33s?
Well, that's an interesting one too, because I thought that Rubicons in Australia at the moment, man, I should know this being a Jeep guy. So, ladies and gentlemen, slay me in the comments if that's a real thing. But I thought they came out with 32s because I thought Australia never got the high hood option, which we get robbed in Australia. There's no question about that. But I think we get the low hood and 32s, and therefore you couldn't run 35s on them legally. You had to run the 34s. So I don't believe that we ever got the 33s. So. Now, it'd be interesting to see what they do with it because, I mean, if they get it legally registered, well, here you go. Josh, I'm firing back into influencers everywhere. This is what I'm doing. Because this is another interesting one about the whole influencer game is that there's a lot of cars. Mate, I'm not pointing the finger. I'll put my first hand up. Like, all my cars now are legal because I'm an old man. I don't like tickets. But I went through the phase, like I had a Jeep on 37s with no mod plates. You know what I mean? Like that. We have cages and bits and pieces. That car's now unregistered. The cops got it. That's the way it is. You pay your fines. Back in the day, it was pretty loose and ready. But nowadays, like, do we have some duty of care as influencers to make sure, like, can you run 37s on a GU and run it down around town and not be mod plated on that and have it on YouTube? Like, oh, here we go. Throwing all the shade. Can we do DPF deletes and not have any issues? Like, where does the onus of influencers in the four-wheel drive scene now come back? Like, are you just allowed to do anything? And we go, oh, well, it's just a grain of salt. Because I'm cool with that if that's the answer.
Yes.
I'm just interested in having a conversation around what level of, I don't want to say the word repercussion because there's no repercussion, but what level should we hold these people to that if they're supplying information to the internet, to the general consumer, should they be held higher than just the average Joe that's just driving around? Mate, there's plenty of 18-year-olds just skidding around on that GU with 37s and they're having a fat old time. And hey, I don't really care. They're not really telling anyone what they can and can't do.
Yep.
Does that make sense? Am I fair in saying that comment? Should we hold these Instagram guys to a little higher level where they're like, oh well, because hey, listen, I'll put my Patriot Games, they probably deserve credit in the sense that they're in the process of trying to get it engineered and legal.
Yes.
And they're saying that. They're working with that. What's the deal with the dude that has the GU Ute with 37s and he's just skidding around and everyone in the man and his dog knows that thing's as illegal as anything? Is that the right thing to be putting out as content? Oh, he's thinking about it. He's thinking about it.
Yeah. Well, you've caught me a bit off guard.
Because listen again. So this is a podcast. We're just chatting. I don't personally have an issue with it.
Yeah.
I'm smart enough as my history to know that car that if I drive it down the road, if I put 37s on my Jeep and drive it down through Yeppoon, I'm probably getting a ticket. That's what's happening.
Yes.
But should I be held not liable? I don't like that word in it. But is there some sort of level of, well, if I'm giving people information about how they should four-wheel drive and what they should do, and the car should be legal?
Nah.
No, you like
common sense got to come back in to the world. People got to be smart enough to realize that, I
like it. So I can live with that. But what happens to the dude that never had the old school father that kept him in line? They're just getting into four-wheel driving now. I'm being Dad's a computer. Wow, I'm starting to say but you know what I mean? Like, they've never had anything to do with cars. They drove a Corolla all their life. Old mate down the street goes, "Oh man, I'm into this four-wheel driving thing." They're hooked. They buy themselves a GUU. They put 37s on it, have a crash, and they've got no insurance. They go, "But I saw old mate on the internet. Has he got no insurance?"
Yeah, but if old mate on the internet jumped off a cliff, would you do it?
No, but that might be a bit different.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think...
I don't know, because does anyone...
So as a lecky, right, where it's just our job, it's the onus is on us to keep up to date with rules and regulations and everything like that. Like, when there's a new update to AS3000, it's on us to keep up to date, not on the electrical department. Now, I know there's a difference because no lecky, but hey, there are leckies out there that are putting stuff on YouTube.
I like this statement. Yeah, I understand where you're going.
So as a licensed driver, the onus is on you
to know that your car's legal.
Yes.
Mate, I actually love that answer. That's fine.
All our work utes. Doesn't matter whether any car that you drive, doesn't matter. I could be down in Brizzy, catching up with BT and Elise, and one of their mates has a few too many beers and says, "Hey, Josho, can you drive my car home?" I drive his car home for him, and it's unregistered. I get pulled over. The onus is on me.
Gee, that's rough, though, isn't
it? It is rough.
Say it like that. That's rough.
No, it is rough. It is rough, but that is where the world's at.
Yep.
And I guess it's not that hard now maybe 20 years ago, before the internet, but in this day and age of information, because as much information as the influencers are putting out there, there is enough information for you to be able to look up and work out what's legal for your car and what's not.
Very true.
Yes. So if you've got the time to watch these social media influencers, you also have the time to probably check and see what's legal for your car.
Ooh, there you go.
Common sense, bro. I think it needs...
Oh, but I worry that... See, you just said common sense. That's
it's not common. It's not common. I know, but people being responsible for their own actions. How about that?
Yep. No, I like it.
Because otherwise, where does the world go? So then, okay, V8 supercars are on TV, and I seen old Di Pasquale try and put a last-minute pass on Gizzy. So I'm racing BT's mate home because we're DDPing it, and...
I don't know about this. I don't know where we're going with this.
No, but hey, I saw this on TV.
Yep. No.
I don't know. Yeah, you're right. This is just a conversation, but I don't agree.
Your point of view is very much the law.
Yes, I guess that's where I was going.
At the end of the day, it doesn't matter who has put 40s on a Jeep, and if you put 40s on your Jeep and don't do the right thing and drive around, and again, to clarify that statement, the Patriot Games guys are actually doing the right thing with respect to trying to engineer it, getting it sorted out. They're talking about that side of it. So there's no issue with that, just to clarify it from our point of view. I'm just interested in, whether. But I also totally agree with your statement. Like, at the end of the day, if you're into four-wheel driving, you should know enough to have a look at the Department of Transport Board or whoever is the governing body in your area and go, "Oh, well, that's not legal, and therefore I can't use that as a defense of getting out."
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we're trying to steer a little away from it in this podcast, but off-road racing, it's not on... you rock up to the race and your car's not legal. It's no one's fault but your own.
Yeah.
and Cams may have had Motorsport Australia or a AASA may have had a rule change about requiring a blue light rather than just the original amber dust light. It's on you to keep up.
Yeah.
But that's sort of just my take on it a little bit.
Yeah, no, I agree. I like that.
So I got a question here, just from Josh Graveling. He says, as a young bloke with a car, I know we are sometimes targeted by police. It's up to you to be the person behind the wheel to take. Sorry, not a question, a statement. To take the person behind the wheel to take the responsibility in the end.
Yep. Don't disagree in any way.
Thanks for agreeing with me, Josh. I ignored every other comment that was against me. And no,
Yeah.
I didn't really.
No, but and again, I can totally stomach that fact, and it's the law at the end of the day. I do agree, but I guess yeah, I don't know. I'm just interested in this. I've been thinking about it a lot this week for some reason. And again, I'm not knocking anyone. If you're making a living out of forward driving and doing YouTubes and doing videos and all sorts of stuff, well then congratulations. Like that's awesome. I'm pumped, and I enjoy personally watching most videos. Like like Matt Preston and TJ Jack. Like I love watching their videos. They're a hoot. I must admit, I'm pretty disappointed in Matt for getting out of the Ranger. The Ranger was the greatest thing ever. I don't know what he did there, but I even told him that. But anyway, but the moral of the story is that it's entertaining content.
Yes,
and that's great, and that's what we're here for. Like we need it's the new thing, isn't it? Like we put the iPad on or put it on the smart TV or whatever and crank it up and have a watch, and it's very enjoyable to get out of our day-to-day life and enjoy. Particularly TJ Jack does some amazing edits.
Very good edits. Yes.
So,
yep.
Yeah.
So what do you think the answer is then, Dan? Do you think that it's a case that we can have people looking after themselves? Yeah. Like I think people do need to be a bit responsible for themselves, and I think it's one of those interesting ones where I don't think influencers can be to blame for people driving illegal cars or anything like that. I think it's just one of those ones where it's up to you. And I guess I would much rather watch, as a person consuming content, I would much rather watch cool content than watch I'd much rather see them, at Land Cruiser Mountain Park on a 70, on a I was going to say 79. Anyhow, in a GU or something like that, or something cool that had big tires, lift, a cool motor, stuff like that. Like, heck, I love, things like Cornick's Turbo GU Patrol. Now, that's a awesome bit of kit and stuff like that. And I would rather see modified stuff than 100% legal stuff on social media.
You're not suggesting that Cornick's car isn't?
No.
No, I wouldn't. It's 100% street legal.
I guess so.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. That's the thing. Like, I've never seen Cornick post anything of it going over the, getting approved by the DOT or anything like that. And I wouldn't watch that. Don't care.
I wouldn't watch it.
No, I'm just saying. Yeah. Wouldn't watch it. Wouldn't care. I would much rather just see the content of the car doing something cool.
God, hey, listen, I like it. I like it.
I've got better things to do. No.
Where have you really though?
Some days.
Anyone? Is it mowing?
Definitely not mowing, mate. That's you farm that work out.
That's for the plebs. I love it. No, hey, listen. So I think we've had a good debate. I hope that again everyone in the comments has a bit of a debate about that, because just something that interests us. Again, can't suggest this enough. Don't have a real
dog in the fight.
Don't have a dog in the
horse in the race.
Not really stressed about it. Enjoy watching the content. Don't have an opinion.
Yep.
But
you do have an opinion.
I don't know if I do, because I don't have an issue with it either way.
Yep.
If you want to run 37s and put it on YouTube, that's on you. I don't have an issue with it as such.
Well, I got an opinion. Keep doing what they're doing. Yeah. Don't change it. Don't be putting 33s back on your GU because that's 100% street legal. Yawn. 100%.
It says Josh Curran that had a Hilux on 37s and told the cop lady that it has DOT stamped on it. So
Did it have DOT stamped on the sidewall?
Lie.
But no, it's not a ie. It was DOT on the sidewall. Yes. I rest my case. Lawyered. Rowan King, if you listen, sign me up, bro.
Got it sorted.
No, I'm just saying, as a content consumer, I would rather watch interesting stuff than 100% road legal stuff.
I love it.
Yep.
Very good.
So that's my opinion. I do have an opinion.
There you go.
Yep.
Josh is throwing it out.
Nah, keep doing it.
He loves it.
Yeah.
Mac Preston, if you're there, just phone, go for it. Just 40s on the cruiser next to it tomorrow.
Don't be scared, homie.
42s.
Don't be scared, homie.
Well, CVs in the Toyota are very scared. Just throw it out there.
I'm sure Longfield makes something for him.
Is Longfield a thing anymore?
Don't know. Yeah, don't know.
They
were pretty indestructible in the front of that Hilux. Yeah.
They were the best back in the
Yeah,
day. The early ones were legit.
They're probably still floating around somewhere. Probably still getting punished.
Were they in the front? Did they end up in a Mick Benson Hilux?
Yep.
Wonder what that thing's doing now. There's a Hilux sitting in the shed in Rocky that had all the fruit. It ended up with all the good bits in it.
Well, I was talking to Dad the other day, and I said at the time, I did swap it straight for that red TJ, and it was very cool. But probably my biggest regret of letting cars go was letting that Hilux go.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Wonder if you'd think that now, though. Wonder if that's a era thing.
Yeah, is it rose-colored glasses?
Yeah, because you had some fun. One in the TJ.
So, yeah, 100%.
So Josh's backstory is that a dude came. Actually, it was our
cousin. Yeah.
Came and offered him a straight swap for this EFI 37-inch tired single cab style side. It was a beat up body, but it was
rust free.
Rust free. Very hard to get.
Style side,
long cab. Beautiful ute. Really cool ute. Had a plexiglass canopy. It was true early American rock crawler. No bars, no nothing. Like all factory, just with 37 low, 1 inch lift.
Yep, 1 inch lift, 1 inch body lift.
Yeah, it was a very interesting and cool.
Some sneaky cuts into the body in places, but yes, 1 inch lift.
All legal, I hope.
No,
I'm kidding. I don't want to put that back up. Anyway, long story short is that it swapped straight for a Jeep. Well, then, Josh, you swapped it straight for a Superman. So, I mean, if you look at it as a progression, like you had a good time doing that.
Yes. Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah, there probably is a case of rose-colored glasses.
Yeah.
I think it's just probably the fact that with older cars, they're not getting, state the obvious, idiot, but they're not getting made anymore. Yeah. So, like, where do you track one of those down?
Yeah. We talked about on the pod with Mick Taylor from Race Wheels Australia, how hard it is to get to one of those 80, 81 Hiluxes that is any good. Listen, there's a few out there, but they're junk. Actually, shouting out too, a heap of people sent me links to them.
Well, that's probably the thing as well. Like, I guess at the stage I'm in my life, there was some good ones, and shout out to all the people that did send in links. Because
if Duffield's listening, he's talking a big game, isn't he? Because you offered him one, and then he didn't do it.
No, that's what. I know. But I guess at the stage of my life, I got 2 little twin girls at home and everything like that. Like,
so what you're saying is you don't miss it?
No, I do. I do miss it. I just don't know if I've got 7 or 8 grand to drop on a toy at this point in my life, particularly when the Gymco needs some love as well. That there's some money to be spent there to finish that thing off. So, but that's what I'm saying. If I didn't let it go, I'd still have it.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't need the $8,000.
Yeah, true.
Because I'm Povo, mate. I'm just a poor lecky trying to get by day by day.
You lot listening to this because I don't know what he's talking about.
But gee, where were we going with that? I was just saying how much I love four-wheel driving. Yeah, it is, mate. It's where all of our friends that we have now. It's actually where we met them. You think about Billy. That's how we met him. Sean Swaffield, Aaron Benson, BT. Luke Ayres.
We're going wheeling tomorrow.
Yeah,
we're going for a play up through Byfield, ending up at Fivey. So like all that sort of stuff. That's the sort of stuff that is our bread and butter. People sort of think that we've fallen away from four-wheel driving. We don't. Once a month we will do a decent wheel. We'll go camping somewhere. We'll do some trip. We sort of are much more in-house than we used to do because, like you said, kids and life changes a little bit. But if you're interested, we're still wheeling. We're still doing plenty. We're still having a good time. So it's interesting. Hey,
so.
Ladies and gentlemen, when Josh says so, he's getting ready for some interesting facts.
Well, just a big news. Like we said, we most of our off-road racing, but some big news in off-road racing this week is Motorsport Australia have announced that in 2023, for the Australian Championship, won't be at St. George. It'll be at Charters Towers.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, Josh. I'm not sure. Listen, one thing. First blanket statement. The work that the North Queensland as a whole in the off-road racing scene is doing at the moment, they are super. They deserve huge commendation. They're killing it. The North Queensland's off-road racing scene at the moment so strong between Burdekin and Don River Dash and all the other stuff and the Charters Towers and there's a lot of great people in that camp. So listen, they can do it. There's no question about that. But the crazy bit for me, Josh, is the kilometers. Like, we're in Yeppoon, and I just Googled it, and it's like 790 kilometers. So it's further for us to go to Charters Towers to race from Yeppoon in Rockhampton, in central Queensland, than it is to go to like Gundawindi or to St. George. That's hard to fathom for people traveling from Victoria.
Yeah. Western Australia.
Well, I suppose, listen, this sounds terrible.
They go long
when
anyhow.
When you get to Western Australia, I feel for them. Those are the bread and butter, heart and soul off-road races. Because if you're racing a full championship from Western Australia, you deserve a medal. And I don't say that lightly. Like, that is a huge year to race.
Yep.
But if you're racing out of, say, New South Wales, like, it's very doable to do the East Coast series.
Yes.
Yeah. And particularly with Kalgoorlie being towards the end of the year, you can make that. Sorry, is it not Kalgoorlie? The Western Australia round.
Yeah, Kalgoorlie.
Kalgoorlie. It's towards the end of the year.
Yep.
You can make that decision. Depending.
Yeah. How is your championship
that's
going?
Not great for Kalgoorlie as a club, but it's a reality of racing and budgeting. Because again, I know we've said this a couple of times, but ladies and gentlemen, famous people have said, if you want to start, if you want to make $1 million off-road racing, you start with $2 million, and it's bit into off-road racing, you'll have $1 million. It's just a waste. May as well put it in that money in that fire and just burn it. But I tell you what, we have a good time doing it.
Yes. Yep.
But it's interesting. So that was a statement that no one's getting rich off off-road racing. So what I think's interesting is that it's going to be one of those things that to go to Charters Towers, it's going to be the first round, I assume, Josh, because that's where St. George was.
Maybe.
Yeah. So
they haven't. Obviously, they haven't released a calendar for next year.
Yeah.
But they have obviously
got to fit into the existing calendar.
Yes, but I guess they can shuffle a few things around. Maybe some races that have been rain affected might be looking to shift earlier in the year, and Charters Towers, it's pretty dry. It probably doesn't get too rain affected.
Never rains in North Queensland. Yeah. No,
it rains a lot in North Queensland. What are you talking about?
Oh, right.
It's actually been raining tonight while we're doing this. It was a beautiful afternoon this afternoon. I said, well, let's set up outside. And then it rains.
Right. Damn rain in Byfield.
Yep.
No, listen, I like it. It's just going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a wild call, personally. Yeah,
So how do you reckon that comes about? Cams, they just ring up and they're like, hey, man, we want to run a national round.
Is St. George not interested in next year? I mean, I don't know all the facts.
Yeah. That might be a situation because, I mean, again, if you've been behind the scenes on any of this stuff, the requirements, and that's not a shot at any national round, like as in the logistics of just running a race is crazy, isn't it?
I'm getting dry, Dan. Is what I'm saying.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, bud.
I thought you were telling me to put it in my right hand.
No, go on for the sign language. Yeah, copy.
Oh, good lad. Yeah. So what we were saying though is that what were we saying? Oh, St. George. Yeah.
Maybe they don't want in
because they will still run a Queensland round. Like there's no question about that. They'll still run down the southeast.
But they are super passionate about off-road racing there.
Yes. Yeah. It's a good club.
It's a great race.
Surprised. We'd obviously been involved earlier on, but we hadn't been for a couple of years. And then to go to St. George this year and the adversity that they had because of the weather.
Yes.
And then to get around what they did, you're like,
and still put on a relatively, they lost probably what's one of the coolest viewing areas in off-road racing with the dams and everything like that. They still put on a pretty bloody good spectator zone for people to see, which is super hard in off-road racing.
Absolutely.
Super hard. So credit to St. George. Like if they wanted in and they sort of got denied, it's a bit rough on them.
Yeah, true. Yep, but it'll be interesting to see because no doubt, I mean, someone knows the information. They can tell us. But the interesting part, it will be a bit of a shuffle within what is a pretty solid calendar. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, because particularly again early in the year, it'll be pretty warm up in Charters Towers. You'd almost want to be trying to push Charters Towers
back a little bit.
Yeah.
Yep, mate. Well, maybe that is one of the ideas. Bring something like Pooncarie forward or something like that, and to when it's a little bit warmer in those colder places.
Yep.
And maybe Charters Towers is a bit of a winter race, but it's a long way to go.
It is. It is when you talk about that. So
for a brand new race.
Yeah.
But I guess at some point,
brand new race. I mean,
yes,
been running, just to clarify.
Yes,
that.
yeah,
So,
for a brand new national. But I guess
yeah.
at some point in time, every national was a brand new national.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Well, we've seen it in just the last 10 years that every other than Fink, they've had a complete change of nationals, haven't they?
Yes.
So, like you said, we've had a few changes come and go.
Yes.
A few clubs stepping up to the plate. So I suppose the other side of that, Josh, is we should commend the Charters Towers and the club that's involved up there, because if they've stepped up to fill a gap, well, good on them, because that's something that is very, I don't want to use the word overwhelming, but it's a full-on task to take on, isn't it?
To take on running a national.
Yeah.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Like, that's going to be a big weekend. That's now going to take months of work.
Yep, and different level of competitors as well.
Yeah, for sure.
There's a lot more intensity in the competitors.
Yeah, we've talked about how good Burdekin is.
That year when Talbot's just like, geez, it's hot. Do you guys want to do more laps? You know, to drink beers? And we're like, yeah, let's drink beers. So we pulled up early, and then they shuffled, and we started, we pulled up an hour early on Saturday.
Because it was
hot. It was November in North Queensland is not, it was like 40 degrees and probably 80%.
The only one that wanted to keep racing was Clayton Chapman because he had aircon or something like that, I'm sure. Keep going.
But 40 degrees and probably, 70 or 80% humidity. So they just shuffled and went, well, let's pull up early today, and then we'll start early tomorrow. So, the start time changed from 9 o'clock to like 7:30 or something like that. And it was easy to organise because essentially I think the vote was just yelling out of the pit. You know what I mean? So you probably can't do that with the national.
Yeah.
So it isn't, and understandable. There's a lot more money. There's a lot more pride. There's a lot more, there is a lot more at stake.
Yeah.
Compared to just running a state round.
Again, especially if it's early on. I mean, it
hot,
doesn't really matter, but
hot.
Particularly if it's early on in the season, as well as hot. But I'm going to say that there's going to be guys that are gunning for national points.
Yeah, that's right.
They want them early. Yeah, you start bringing in the likes of Shannon Wrench and Josh Howells and all these guys. And again, nothing against them, but they're uber professional.
Yep.
They know what it takes to run at the front.
Yep.
They know what's involved. So again, it's not going to be like you said. Oh yeah, stuff the next laps. No, I need
the next laps.
That's happening
right.
so I can get from second to first.
Yes, that's right.
So it'd be interesting to see. I tell you what, I'll go for a drive and check it out. Though.
Well, it's close. Oh, that's the thing. It is close for us. We can't really.
I love how everyone. That's what you got to understand about Central Queensland people. Like we drive 350 k's to work. Like that's a standard sort of run. So to the 780 to Charters Towers, that's just sort of like a mid-morning trip for us. So
although I did see Team Taylor just commented and said that for them, it's essentially the same distance to Charters Towers, or I think 100 k's less. From Charters Towers to Brizzy for them as it was to Pooncarie.
And that's crazy when you're talking about Brisbane.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's going to be an interesting one because I can't stress this enough. I suppose the Victorians, they've got a short run in that situation down south, like where they're running around those nationals, but it is a big drive all the way up there, especially when that fits into now a championship that has Fink in it as well as Kalgoorlie.
That's probably the thing.
Because hey, listen, the flip side of that is national race.
Yep,
it is truly national.
Yeah,
and Talbot have been traveling the nationals. For
I was going to say,
if you want to look at it like that, it's fair. Everyone's doing the same thing.
I do agree, and I think probably one of the subjects that you brought up earlier is I think the North Queensland guys have been organising amazing races,
standout races.
Yeah,
no one's going to be disappointed. It's going to be a good time.
Yep.
But I wonder about the logistics.
Well, but I don't know. I mean, Mick and Talbot have their plate pretty full. I can't probably. Well, I know some of the conversations with Mick. They've been working on organising Don River Dash stuff for the last 6 months. I don't know if they have time on their plate to be able to get involved with Charters Towers. Maybe they do. I don't know, but probably with Don River, I can't see them shutting up shop on Don River because it's such an awesome. It doesn't need a championship. It doesn't need anything. It's just this incredible. It's like Fink. It's an incredible standalone race. Like all off-road racing, like every championship could dissolve in Australia, and you might see some of these races disappear. Don River would be there.
Yeah, and Fink. Yep, for sure.
Yes.
No, I totally agree, and I think that again they hit a wide range of boxes in that. I think because that's the other thing is I'm not enough of a guru. I shouldn't be having an opinion on this just to prefix this conversation, but I'm also interested in what infrastructure is in Charters Towers too for a national level race. Like, motels, accommodation, pools, pubs. Well, obviously, all of that stuff's there, but it is a small rural community. It's not a massive. It's not Bowen.
Smaller than St. George?
True, but St. George holds it together, so you're absolutely right.
Yep. But, maybe they'll do something different, allow camping at the track or something like that. Surely you would look at Don River and look at some of the, you'd be talking, obviously being North Queensland, they're all French. You'd be picking up the phone to Mick or Talbot and asking a few questions about what do you guys do that you think makes your race successful.
Well, I would also think that a lot of the people at Charters Towers are involved in an official capacity at Don River. Like they'd all share, information and that anyway. So yeah, probably a good point. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. Listen, it's a fresh one. It's only been announced like when was it? Like yesterday, today, something like that. Like it's been on the Insta and on the socials and that. So that's going to be an interesting one. And I'm sure lots of people will have an opinion on it.
Yep.
Again, I don't have an opinion on it until after it has probably been raced.
To
see what because mate, it might kick ass.
Well, look at St. George. I mean, when it started off, it wasn't. And that's the thing, you got to, if they're going to, and that's probably where I feel a little disappointed for St. George. Like because the way the post read is that they had lost. St. George won't be a national or won't be part of Motorsport Australia National. Maybe it'll get picked up by, a different championship out there. But I kind of feel for those guys. Like you said, it takes time to learn how to run a national level event. And I feel like, every year, this is just outside looking in, so maybe there are some things behind that we don't know. But from the outside looking in, it seemed like they were getting better every year at running that race. So it's kind of a bit of a shame because now we're back to that starting position. Like you look at where St. George was when it first started that year, and it was essentially like a 30, 35, 40K loop that was just graded through trees and stuff like that. And the track wasn't that great. But now it's it's a great loop. It's got great spectator viewing points. They added the dams in, like they were really improving every year. And now, we're starting from scratch again.
Yeah.
Which is a bit of a shame. Like I said, no disrespect to Charters Towers, but it takes time to it's almost like an apprenticeship.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You've got to learn how to run these events and stuff like that. So I mean look at Fink, as in, being on the different side of the fence and doing some commentating this year there, and having a chat to people. They're like, yeah, we are always learning. Like, and we offered some input as to things we think they could do a little bit better with their live stream and with the way they
because we're experts. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. But a few little just as people that have commentated at different events, like things that people get wrong and others get right, and Kelsey and Ryan and those people that we talked to were all willing to take that on board, and that's an event that's been going now for 45, close to 45 years. So, and they're still learning.
Yeah.
So, I think it's a bit of a shame that they've taken it off St. George, but also excited. New track. Who knows? It could be flipping awesome. Like, although, in saying that, Burdekin really should have been the nat.
And run for 24 hours.
The Burdekin 24. Actually, we haven't talked about that for a while.
We pushed that hard for a little while, ladies and gentlemen. We were all about Mick Marson running the 24. I must admit, though.
And then they started some pansy race called the Don River.
Well, I was going to say, if they pull that out because they sorted us out with that it's a great race. But, we wanted to run 24 hours straight on the Burdekin track. Start at 12, finish at 12 the next day. Night racing, it would have been bedlam. But would have suited us with our little 400 horsepower LS at the time. Yes. We would have just put pump gas through it for hours. She never would have failed us.
Yeah.
Well, knock on wood.
Yeah, for sure. for
But
sure.
No, there's lots of good racing to be had, I guess, is what you're saying, Josh. It will be interesting.
Yep.
And no doubt it's going to be something that until it's run, there's going to be a lot of opinions on it. There's going to be a lot of comments on it. There's going to be a lot of people that do and do not like it and all that sort of stuff. But I suppose as the event organizer, I hope that they're, really just got their head down.
Yes.
They know what their goal is.
Well, they've got, 8-10 months to kick some goals. Yep. Hopefully they get out to other races, get behind the scenes there, see what they do well, see what, they think they can do better or what will, because that's a tough thing. What one race does well may not work at your race due to how your track layout is and stuff like that. So, yeah.
No, it'd be interesting. But
very interesting.
Yeah.
So another one of our questions this afternoon put out from our Instagram story is, what do you think is the biggest off-road off that you've ever witnessed, as in the off-road crash
that I've physically seen,
or anywhere really? I mean, there's been some monsters.
There has. So the biggest one that I've never seen, so as in I saw it on YouTube, I reckon was that crazy one of, is it Ag Whitehead? Who
yes,
yeah, his name's Ag, isn't it? A something.
Yeah,
anyway, I should know this, but it's the white
U theory.
U theory.
Yep,
that one was crazy.
Where he blew, as in where he broke his back.
But it was off the jump. I think it was at Parker.
Going backwards at Parker. Yes.
Right. Okay. I probably don't know all the ins and outs of it, but it was the one where Harley went out through the paddock.
Yes.
And his truck was on the side of the road. And for some reason, again, it's funny how your algorithm and stuff works on the internet. Like, I never saw that for 6 months or so. And then when I actually saw, because I'd seen Harley's footage and I'd seen that truck sitting on the side of the track, and it made a lot of sense. But when I actually saw that Whitehead crash, that crash was violent. It was real nasty. Yeah, I reckon it was one of the wildest ones that I've ever seen. The wildest one that I've seen live. But this is an interesting one because the reality is that it was Billy Geddes at Gundawindi. That was crazy to witness live. But I reckon the wildest one, I also reckon Mick Marsons at Lockyer Valley was wild because I'd never seen a car front flip quite like that. And I think to see a car like Billy's was a side. Oh no, see, whose was wilder, Josh? Troy Duff's or Billy's?
Well, that was the one I was going to talk about. Was Troy's was just wild.
Does anyone actually like talking about real wild crap?
Yeah, no, yeah, you feel awkward, don't you? But yeah, I mean, Billy's was massive. Troy's was just as probably Troy's
live to see was crazy.
Yeah.
Because it was like the flash of
fire.
And that
was what I was about to say. Is the fire was the big one with Troy's.
Big shout out to Duff too.
Yeah.
The fact that he's back and racing and doing things with everything that went on, that was crazy. And it was a crazy 30 minutes or 40 minutes not knowing how wild it was. Yeah, man. That really had us constantly, it was a somber moment.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. But probably one of those two. So both of them were at Gundy, which is tough.
And both at the same section of track, but modified.
Yeah.
So Billy's was Malapunya run before it got smoothed up, before it got modified to make it a little bit safer. And then Troy's was after that, but it was the extra speed of Troy's from the smoothed out Malapunya. So it's funny how sometimes, two different sections of track thought it was made safer and result the same.
Yeah, and what's crazy about that track is because you've got experience, much like I do on that track. We've physically raced it, navied it, and done different things on that track. The crazy bit about Malapunya is that it is not by far. It's not the wildest piece of the track.
No,
it's actually,
but it's probably one of the fastest.
Correct, and that's what I get to the point is that it's actually that it's not as rough, that you end up going faster and the repercussions of
It's
an interesting bit of track because, again, I can't... Out the back of Gundy, it's rougher. It's unpredictable.
Yes.
It's lots of things. So, but you don't see... Well, I mean, but people crash out the back too. So
yes.
It's an interesting...
Yeah. I mean, that's the things we're talking about. Dean Keys has just commented and said Bangers Endo at Pines. Remember that from
Yeah.
years ago? Like
Yeah.
that was huge
That
in that
was
that
huge.
mid-engine Jimco.
Yeah.
Yep, that was an absolute monster.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, there has been. Do you know what I will say though? And what we really should shout out is a lot of times, you know, the officials and the AORC and,
Yes.
and CAMs and that get a bit of a AORA, and you know they're sort of like a bit painful. Oh, we got to find change our race straps. Oh, our harms is out of date.
Yes.
Oh, it's a
Yep.
pain. Overall, we've had a very I mean, there's been some huge crashes.
Yes.
Like, yeah, when I think about it, like the Pines is a wild ass race. Like when you're doing like remember that video of Sandy Bowman? I think it was the old Aussie racer where he was going along and then he ran into the trees in a right hand side power slide. Like Sandy Bowman is an absolute lunatic in a Nissan Patrol. Like and like the consequences of getting that sort of stuff wrong
with those
huge.
trees,
with pine trees, you know what I mean? Like they do not move.
No.
So it's interesting because I mean that was one of the big things about Gundy too. I think the early was Billy had the tree there, didn't he?
Yes, the tree got cut down after Billy.
After that, because it was that and Zaka. Remember Zaka rolled there as well? I want to say it was a Pajero. Like
in the black patch.
Brad, but Brad was driving it or someone was driving. I can't even remember anymore. But
now the one I remember at Gundy. Remember Mick Marson getting loose in there and doing the flat 360 spin and not rolling and being able to drive away.
Yeah, that was pretty wild. Yeah, no, listen, when you start thinking back across it, there's been a lot of, I mean, Think's another one where there's always close calls. Like you look at the videos there and every year there's a truck on two wheels out through the grass and out through the trees. And yeah, I mean, it's one that's always has a bit of a runoff area that
but I think that's the difference you talk about with Fink. Like there are a lot of trees, but it's not like, I mean, the Pines is literally racing through a forestry.
Yeah.
So there are trees,
big trees
everywhere.
Yeah.
And Gundy has produced some epic crashes, because you weren't talking about it before at the Pines. Sandy Bowman, remember Sandy Bowman's having his big crash at Gundy as well.
Yeah,
that was one that no one witnessed, and I don't think there's any footage of, I haven't seen any footage of it. No. So, which is probably a good thing.
Yeah. No, listen. Yeah, that's an interesting question because there has been some big ones over the years. I mean, Josh, the Wilson Motorsport, it was Hendricks, wasn't it? That rolled forward at one of the Parkers as well in the Jimco, in the Wilson Jimco.
Yes,
that was a pretty wild one too. That I didn't see it live; I just saw it on video. And
yeah, and I think you're right. Like, while it wasn't super spectacular, it was one that I do remember seeing live. Was mixed front roll.
Yeah,
where it like G'd out and then went up and landed on the front bar. Like those front rolls tend to be pretty violent.
Yeah. I don't think I'd ever seen anything quite like that before, and that was pretty wild. Yeah, whereas the side rolls are spectacular and panels fly up and that. There's a lot of speed in it, which is not good. Like
yes.
But it's like not. It's never a sudden stop with the. Oh, don't want to say never.
Yes.
But again, with off-road crashes, it's the stop that gets you.
Yes. Yeah.
Same with motorbikes.
And I tell you what, if old mate had taken the jaws of life to mixed car, that probably would have got him as well.
Yeah, that would have definitely. No, so that's wild, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, sure. That's a good question, but it's an interesting question because I think there's many levels to that question, but
yeah, particularly depending on, are you in a tin top? Are you in a tube frame car? Like you said, yeah, I mean, some of the photos that came out of Sandy's car after it was rolled was pretty wild. But yeah.
I tell you what, interestingly too, we talked about Tough Truck. I've seen some pretty wild rolls at Tough Truck too.
Into like water and stuff like that. Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty wild too. That sort of wakes me up. That and the other one was, I think it was on Heartbreak Ridge, and there's a real wild forward roll where old mate came down a rock ledge bonus line, got it wrong, went over, and then it was on fire as well as it was rolling down the hill. Oof. That was pretty wild. Like anything fire related is crazy. Like again, Tough Truck's an interesting beast because whilst it's crazy, and it is crazy, everyone's right there. There's fire marshals, there's fire extinguishers, there's people. Like, so it was never really as much of a worry as the off-road racing thing's a bit scary because it does tend to be a bit more remote and rural. And that you could have an accident and potentially be on your own for at least a period of time. That's pretty wild.
Macca Kittle's Jimco at Fink.
That was crazy.
Yeah. Like, I mean, that that fire got so hot that it melted all the parts, like you know, the impeller wheel and the shaft of the turbo was still left there, but all the housing and everything had like all the
gearbox was melted on the ground.
Yes, that's right.
And Albans was melted sitting on the ground. It was crazy.
Yep. Still,
and the crazy story there is so the backstory there was was that what year was that? Was that 16?
16.
So there you go. That was the year we rode, and we didn't end up racing, obviously. And we were at like the 168 mark, and it was
very
crazy.
Accurate there, Dan.
Well, because I think that Macca's burnt happened at like 162, didn't
it? Well, we could see the flames.
Yes, and
that not the flames. We could see the smoke.
And that's what we originally thought, that someone was burning some tires there, like, you know, just being loose. We're like, oh, look at these crazy cats. But then we realized, we're like, that's got to be a car fire. Then when but someone else had, like, obviously, and that's one of the things about Fink, which is interesting, is that we're just talking about being remote. Fink's one of those weird races where it's not as remote as you think it is because there's so many people down the track.
Yes.
So yeah, that's an interesting one for sure. But yeah, Macca's was pretty wild for sure. Yeah, the old desert racing, like, it's a different game, I think. It's both amazingly enjoyable, but crazy, stressful in the same thing. The logistics, all of that side of stuff. Like, the forward driving side of life is much more chilled.
For sure. Well, like you said, you go. Well, particularly you think about something like one of the big things we talked about, you know, a little while ago was, you know, you go racing for a weekend, you got to put the car on and off the trailer 100 times. Some of these 4-wheel drive events, like, you know, low meat, like the 3-car and stuff like that, you unload your trailer at the start of the weekend, you camp there, like all the racing's at the same block of land, like,
dam that you can swim in.
Go for a swim in, like the kids love it. Yeah, like old Riker doing his BMX Bandit tricks last year, thanks to Mickey B bringing the bike. So it's like you said, we just wanted to probably talk a little bit more about our background of 4-wheel driving and stuff like that, and give you guys a bit more of a hint of things that we enjoy.
Well, I got one more thing that I want.
Hit me.
It sounds like
it was slowly, but if
you're
the
one other thing that I put on the Off-Road Cartel at Off-Road Cartel on the Instagram, because, you know, I'm an influencer and all that sort of stuff. But we're throwing down a little bit of a gauntlet, because I don't think it is. Because I just let me say that to start off with. But I want to know who's got the toughest work tilly. And it's not like a tilly that you don't, you know, I just put every Sunday I put a bit of wood on it or something like that. No, that doesn't count. The old Danger Ranger, she's driven day in, day out. She was fitting air cons today. It is not good on fuel, I'm telling you. But she got the big stick 6.2 in her, and she gets driven daily, does 300 Ks to work, and then she'll go up the Cape York. So there's the challenge. I want you to send me videos and you know, slide into the old DMs at Off-Road Cartel or at DIRTBAGZ Podcast or whatever you want to do. And because I reckon a lot of people that run fake tillies, Josh. And again, I'm not knocking that. I've been guilty of that as well. You know, where you've got the old street car, you drive at a gym, and it's the old Valiant that's got 600 horsepower. Yeah, we don't really drive her every day. It's a shed toy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then the flip side is, I'm really interested in who dailies these things. Like, you know, is there like Corey Howe's a prime example.
Yes.
Big Super Duramax picking the kids up from school. Not that it's really a work tilly. See, this is where but it's not. I want to know who drives it for work, like a real work ute, and has maybe he's got a pretty couple of wild utes.
Yep.
They'd put me.
And I think he did a trip over to Western Australia in that black in Old Pid in the black GU to do some work.
Yeah, so, you know, like I would think that that's a true work tilly. So, yeah, throw it out there. Send us videos, tag us in your videos or whatever else you do it. I'm very interested in who's got some decent work tillies because, it's always fun. I like these things.
I like it. So what's the plan? Are we going to...
Oh, no, this is right on... What are you saying? You're going to throw them something?
Yeah, we could throw them something.
Done. Let's throw it out so that it's not just the best. The top 3 work ute tillies.
Yes.
Even streetcar. Oh, streetcars gets a bit vague.
No, work cars.
It's got to be work cars.
We want to see a ladder strapped on the roof.
Yeah, super tough work cars.
Yep.
We'll send 3 caps out. So the top 3. How's that sound for a win?
Like it.
And I'll even pay the postage and handling out of Josh's phone money.
Unlucky.
Yeah.
How did I get dragged into this? You're the one that's humble bragging.
I wasn't humble bragging. Guys, I know.
You were bragging.
Yeah.
No humble about it.
Yeah.
I like it. Well, there you go. Something little to wrap it up. We'll say, hit.
And if anyone beats me, I'm going to spray some nitrous on this thing tonight.
But wait up. Is it just what we decide's cool?
Oh, just send us cool stuff.
There's no rules. There's no
We just love seeing
regulations.
cool stuff.
Yeah. Don't look up. There's no bylaws or anything. It's just we're going to decide 3 cool work tillies. Hit us up at Off-Road Cartel or at DIRTBAGZ_podcast, and we'll send a little bit of OC merch out to these people. Because if you're rocking a cool work tilly, we're happy to send you a little bit of gear as well. So
I like it, Josh. I like it.
What a way to end. And I like to see a couple of jacks that he's willing to spend money. Good little chat. Hopefully you guys understand a little bit more about who Dan and I are, accurate. What our background is and stuff like that. But hey, thanks for listening. We hope you've had a good time, and we'll talk to you a bit later on.
Yeah.